Hello Internet, hello YouTube, and hello world. This is Daniel Parker. Before I get into the topic for today's video, I wanted to make a quick reminder. The mailing list for my comic book, Angels Awakening, is now live. If you haven't signed up for the mailing list yet, please do so. The link is in the description below. Everyone who signs up for the mailing list will receive a free trading card exclusive only to the mailing list once you back the comic book. And I would also like to thank everyone who has signed up for the mailing list so far. I really appreciate your support. Again, the link to the mailing list is in the description below if you haven't signed up for it already. Also, links to my social media pages are in the description as well, so you can keep up to date on everything going on with the book. Now, onto the video. So, like a lot of people, I went and watched the Disney Plus documentary, their Marvel 616 series that they're doing. And I specifically watched the episode about the Marvel method, which focuses highly on the man in front of you, Dan Slott. Slott is, of course, well known in comic books, and he's well known in Comicsgate because, Comicsgate hasn't had very, very good interactions with Dan, and that's putting it mildly. But Slott is, of course, well known for writing Spider-Man. And now he was working on a series called Iron Man 2020, which is what he's working on in this episode. Now, it's mentioned in the show that Slott is the last writer at Marvel to use what's called the Marvel method. Now, if you're not familiar with the Marvel method, it's something that Stan Lee came up with to basically save time on comic books, where he'd go to the artists and he'd pitch a story to them and kind of give an overview or a basic outline or summary of what he wants in the comic book, and then the artists basically go and draw the story out, and then the dialogue gets filled in, and boom, it's done. Well, obviously, and like I said, it's a method that was created to save time, but in Dan Slott's case, that doesn't seem to be what's going on here. So the show starts out, Slott's walking around New York City, and he's just, of course, this is before COVID, and he's walking around, and he's daydreaming and all this, just being very, very cute, and then. But then he goes into the Marvel office to see Tom Brevoort, who's one of the senior editors of Marvel, and he stands outside of Brevoort's office. Of course, it's windowed office, and he's kind of pretending like he's banging on the glass like Dustin Hoffman in The Graduate, and Brevoort's just looking at him like, "You moron!" Just like, but. So anyway, they're sitting down, and of course it's staged. Like a lot of these things are staged and planned out ahead. But he's Brevoort's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, but you need more time on your book, don't you?" And the Slott's like, "Yeah, I need more. I need more time to write it." And this is like 3 months before the first issue of Iron Man 2020 is supposed to come out. And then we get into the commentary from Brevoort that, Slott's never been very good with his deadlines, and he's always late and everything. And it's just like, okay, but, he's using a method that's not supposed to happen. So how is it that, you're using a time-saving method, but you're not saving any time? And the only explanation for it can be laziness. I mean, it just seems to me that Dan Slott is a incredibly lazy comic book writer. And of course, that puts a lot of pressure on the people around him or the other people who are working on this book to try to get it in on time. And, there's even a portion of the episode where Slott talks about, about social media, and specifically Twitter, And he said, "Oh, he's there's a scene, there are a couple of scenes in there where he's acting like he's typing this book out, and it's just but he says, he'll see a notification from Twitter, and I think that's a huge part of his problem is he spends way too much time on Twitter, and he's going to he treats the fans very poorly, treats a lot of he blocks people all the time, of course, he hasn't blocked me yet, but I know he has blocked Bogdan. He has blocked my artist. Don't know why, but he did. And that's just he just blocks people, and he's just very he doesn't he comes across in this episode as being this real jovial kind of, oh hey, look at me, hey, but in reality he's kind of a jerk. But anyway, back to the Iron Man 2020. Since Slott isn't going to be able to finish writing the book on time, they have to bring in another writer, Christoph Gage, to write the dialogue. And this was I think 3 weeks before the book is meant to be released. And I just, between him and the letterer, Joe Carmagia, I think is how you pronounce it, because the Slott said it rhymes with lasagna. I feel so bad for those guys. Like you sit down, when you watch this and you look at these two guys, they just look dead inside. They just, especially Joe. Like Joe, he just, there's one point in there where he's talking to, yeah, I could be lettering this 2 days before it's before the release, and he just kind of gets this look on his face, and I'm hearing the sound of silence being played behind him. It's just, I feel so bad for that guy. I really do. And the other part of it is, since he doesn't have a script, he can't letter it, he can't work on it, and there's. As you can see in front of you, he's sitting there saying, "Someone send me a script." He said, "I'm begging you, send me a script." And they're just kind of like, "Hey, you don't have a script." Like, jeez, I watched Ethan Van Sciver's video about this, and I watched your boy Zach's video about this, and Zach had I get where he was. I think I get where he was coming from more so than Ethan, because it's just this is not how you run an industry. It's just it's just you're putting stress on people where there shouldn't be stress. But again, I go back to the fact that they're using a method that's supposed to be time saving. That's supposed to, where you're not crunching, you're not up against a deadline. I mean, it just, why? what, I mean, and there's no other explanation for it other than the guy who's writing the book is lazy. He's just absolutely lazy, and apparently he's always been this way. He's been writing comic books for 30 years, and he's just. It must be really nice to be Dan Slott, because you can just be as big of a space cadet and as you want, and be able to get away with it. And it's just and this is just as much on Tom Brevoort as it is on Dan Slott, because Brevoort lets him do this stuff. But I think this actually highlights another reason why Marvel isn't doing very well. Like, the quality of comic books coming out of Marvel isn't very good, on top of the political agenda that's being injected into all these books. But ultimately, the book does get made, and it does get published, and and then the last part of the show is you see Slott at a at a comic book store in New York City signing copies of the book. And even though it didn't seem like he really did much on it, he just, oh well. But anyway, my thought is on this is Dan Slott strikes me as being an incredibly lazy comic book writer who's using a method of time saving as an excuse to be lazy, though it doesn't really seem to work because that the Marvel method is meant to be a time saving method and he's not saving any time. Anyway, that's all I have for that. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And again, the mailing list for Angels Awakening is up. Link is in the description down below if you haven't signed up for it already. Thank you again for watching, and I will see you all next time.